Good day and welcome back to another World of Warcraft video. In this video we're going to discuss basically what you can do essentially to tackle all of the content that is available in the War Within, and how you can progress through the War Within, starting with the early access, moving through to the release of Season 1. Obviously we'll be talking about a lot of stuff that will only be available when the expansion drops, so if you're someone who's obviously interested in the content, make sure that you are pretty much ready to go as soon as possible, whether it's the early access or the release. So let's talk about the early access portion of the game. So with the early access, which will start roughly at the release of this video, or just behind it, or just ahead of it, but the early access essentially starts on the 22nd of August and will move up to the 25th. During the early access, you cannot actively do too much. There's not a lot of gained power progression. There's no more Azerite power, there's no more supplies, there's no more reputations or renowns, or they are, but I mean there's no borrowed power mechanics that players will have a head up start in, that will prevent players from essentially enjoying their time in World of Warcraft. So you shouldn't panic too much about starting behind as a player. If you do have early access though, what's really great is you will of course have the ability to level up your characters. This will be the primary portion of your time in the War Within, and will be the majority of the content that you do during the time. In terms of other content that you can do, one of them mainly being is the drop of the normal dungeons. You will have the 8 normal dungeons from the War Within that will drop 554 item level gear. You can participate in all of these. Heroic difficulty will not unlock until later on, but it's still pretty good overall, and obviously you can still enjoy the content yourself. Finally, the last two things that you can do is you will have delves. Delves will obviously push themselves essentially right up there for you. You can do up to tier 3 delves, which are solo content, and then you can also basically do a little bit of PvP. I think the new PvP battleground will be open for you, which will be pretty good. But yeah, that's really about it. In terms of professions, you can start working on your professions, but you will be locked out from the weekly profession quest, and you will also be locked out, I believe, from specializations. So you'll have a head start, but not too much of one. During this time, honestly, just mainly enjoy playing the expansion and leveling your characters and enjoying the story. Aside from that, that's pretty much it. If you want to know from a value point of view, you can obviously look at gathering, and this will enable you to have a pretty good time when it comes to a head start on money making in the War Within. The next section will be the official release of World of Warcraft. Obviously a very important time. This will be the 26th of August, depending on your time zone, and the release of the War Within will obviously coincide with quite a few different bits of content. Now, it's important for two things. Firstly, there's no need to rush the War Within. You don't need to rush leveling. You don't need to push your characters to level super duper fast. It's not very important. Do side quests, make sure that you enjoy yourself, and just progress and enjoy experiencing the world. A lot of the times this is your most relaxed time during an expansion. It's also one of the few times you have to do things like score yourself rares, hunt for treasures, and do some of the interesting side activities and puzzles that one might find in the World of Warcraft. So it's a very rare time for you, and it's highly suggested that you take the time to enjoy this, as it will enable you to really have a good time with the game. Of course, on top of all of that, which is not the only bits of content, when it comes to leveling, just a couple tips. You can switch on war mode if you want to, but I wouldn't do it right at the beginning, as you'll be surrounded by other players. And also on top of all of that, you also basically want to log in with all of your ults, so you can start to store rest EXP on all of them, which I think ultimately is probably for the best. Next, let's talk about the actual content. So, of course, leveling is, as mentioned, the most crucial part of this first week, or 2 weeks I should say. But one of the main things you'll also have access to as a player and as someone from early access now is heroic dungeons. You're able to do all of the dungeons on heroic. They will immediately unlock upon the global release. So for a lot of players straight after normal, you'll dive right in to partaking in the heroic based dungeons. And a lot of the reason for this is basically to just give some kind of locking to it. Heroic dungeons give 5, 6, 7 item level gear, and will also give 5, 9, 3 gear from the vault, I believe. It will be the same 8 dungeons that you had during the course of the early access. During this time, you can still only do delves up to level 3. PvP will not get anything else. You can continue now to do your crafting, but you will have access to specializations, and also will have access to the weekly knowledge quest. And then of course you can continue to now do world quests on your characters. World quests are helpful, but don't panic about unlocking them super duper early and running off with them and doing as many as possible. They are good for rewards, but they are not all you need for rewards. They are not the only thing that matters for you. So don't pressure yourself to go and do a whole bunch of world quests. Finish the main quest line. Enjoy yourself from there. It's more important to finish the main quest line. Once you've done that, you will unlock it for all of your ults, and then you're having a good time anyway. Don't panic too much about all of this. Take it easy and take it as it comes, and most times you'll end up just having a good time naturally in the game. The next session, and really the big moments, is obviously the start of Season 1. Now, Season 1, essentially, to cut a long story short, is got a lot that drops with it. So firstly, one of the main things that drops with Season 1 is obviously the release of Mythic dungeons. Now, you don't get to do any Mythic Plus yet. That won't be there for the release of Season 1, which will be that first week from 10th September to the 16th. You will be able to do Mythic 0, which is still a step up. Remember, Mythic 0 now is the equivalent of a Mythic 10 Plus, as per the previous expansion, so it's definitely a straight difficulty increase. You also will have your daily reset and your additional bonus drops as well. These will be the 4 dungeons that are selected from the current roster from the expansion, being Arakara, City of Thread, Stonevault, and Dawnbreaker, and then you will get 4 dungeons from previous expansions, being Necrotic Wake, Mists of Tina, Scythe, Siege of Borealis, and Grim Batol. You will also have an increase in the heroic item level that drops, as previously heroic items essentially dropped a 5, 6, 7 as mentioned, but now you will get 580, which is pretty cool. This is also important because open world bosses will also drop now. Open world bosses will become available and have a potential drop of 603 for you. It will only be the first heroic world open world boss. Delves will also increase up in difficulty. You will be able to go to tier 8 in Delves, which drops 603 item level, and you will be able to open up your weekly vault, which drops for you 616 gear, which is pretty good. On top of that, for PvP players, solo rated battlegrounds will be open, and of course, at this point now, you should be pretty well progressed with your professions. At this time, the big one will be raids, so normal and heroic raids will open up for Narubar Palace, which is pretty huge. Obviously, heroic and normal, lots of competitive raids will be looking to do these levels of difficulty, so you're definitely someone who's going to want to dive into that. And also, of course, for the more casual, you have the normal. LFR will also open up, just the first wing. Normal will drop 597 item level gear, moving out to 606. Heroic drops 610 to 619, and LFR will drop 584, which is pretty good. At this point, obviously, now you should have a fair chunk of content, and especially if you've only been working on one character, you should be pretty good to go overall. And then last but not least, we have the 17th of September, or basically the second week of Season 1 onwards. Here, obviously, Mythic Plus will start dropping. Remember, Mythic Plus basically goes all the way up to plus 10, which is the equivalent of a plus 20 from the previous expansion. And at this point now, Obviously, you can grab yourself 613 gear from Mythic Plus and 623 gear from the weekly vault. The Mythic raids will now open for the competitive raiders, because most casual raiders are not going to be doing Mythic at the course of the 17th. And Alpha Wing 2 will drop, which obviously will continue dropping decent gear. And then from the next week, the 24th, the Alpha Wing 3 will drop, which is pretty good. At this point also, obviously, rated PvP will be in full swing, and you can have a pretty good time. So it's a nice schedule, as always, with the release of an expansion. It stages people out to give them access to certain things. I honestly highly suggest that all you do in the beginning is focus on leveling. There really is nothing more to focus on right at the start. Focus on leveling, focus on getting yourself some decent rewards, focus on grabbing yourself some solid gear, and basically just enjoy exploring the world. This is one of the few times where as a player you have access to things like doing rares, doing treasures, and just in general enjoying yourself a ton with the game. It's super duper important. But honestly, that's really about it for me. I hope you guys enjoyed the video, and if you did, leave a like. Otherwise, I will see you guys in the next one. Until then, take care, stay safe, and as always, bye.